375 years. That's precisely how long it had been since the moment a sword tore through flesh, to the instant Ethan Blackwood's hand grazed Olivia Hayes's back on that fateful December afternoon. He didn't know it yet. Neither did she, but their souls. They knew. And when his fingers found that scar through the torn fabric of her blouse, they both felt something. Something science could never explain. The scar throbbed, it burned as if freshly made, and in their eyes, and for a fleeting second that stretched into centuries, an impossible image flickered. A sword, blood, a scream, a name she'd never heard, yet recognized as her true name, Elena, and he knew, without knowing how he knew, that he had just touched the wound his own hands had inflicted 375 years ago. If you've ever felt an unexplainable connection with someone you just met, this story will change the way you see destiny. But let's rewind, back to the beginning. Because to understand how two strangers arrived at this impossible moment, you need to know who they were. Before their souls recognized each other, Ethan Blackwood was 38 years old and controlled a vast hotel empire spanning 3 continents. His hotels were synonymous with absolute luxury. His decisions moved markets. His name appeared in business magazines as often as his face graced tabloids, speculating why a man so rich, so handsome, remained alone. The answer was simple, yet unknown to all. Ethan couldn't connect with anyone. Every relationship ended the same way. A feeling that he was with the wrong person, that he was waiting for someone specific, someone he already knew, but had never found. Psychologists called it an avoidant attachment pattern. Ethan knew it was something more, something his nightmares confirmed every night. Since the age of 16, the same dream. A woman running, he holding a sword, blood, a scream, and waking up with his heart racing. His hands shaking worse, and a guilt so profound that no therapy could touch it. Guilt for what? For whom? No one could explain, not even him. Ethan had consulted dozens of specialists, psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists of every kind. All offered different explanations: repressed childhood trauma, generalized anxiety, dream symbolism related to fear of failure. None of the explanations worked. No medication eliminated the nightmares. They came every night, without fail, since that first time at 16, when he woke up screaming so loudly. His mother rushed into his room thinking he was being attacked. "What did you see?" she asked, holding her son's trembling hands. "I killed someone, Mom. I killed a woman." The teenager's voice was broken. "I cut her down with a sword. It was just a dream. Darling, just a nightmare." But it wasn't. Ethan knew, even without understanding how he knew, that this dream was more than just a creation of his sleeping mind. It was a memory that didn't belong to this life. Olivia Hayes was 29 years old and carried the weight of a life that had never been easy. A single mother to Lily, a 4-year-old girl who was her entire world. Lily's father had vanished before she was even born, leaving Olivia with a rented apartment, overdue bills, and a fierce determination to give her daughter a better life than she'd had. She worked wherever she could, cleaning houses, catering events, doing odd jobs, anything to pay the bills and ensure Lily had food on the table and a roof over her head. Olivia also possessed something no one could explain: a scar on her back, on the left side, running diagonally from her shoulder to her waist. Doctors said it was an atypical birthmark. Her mother said she'd been born with it. Her grandmother, Rose, said something else. She said that Mark told a story from another life. Olivia always laughed it off. Until that day, the scar had a peculiar shape. It wasn't round like most birthmarks. It was long, thin, curved, as if something sharp had ripped the skin from top to bottom. As a child, Olivia was ashamed of it. As a teenager, she learned to hide it. As an adult, she simply ignored it. But the mark never let her completely forget its existence. Sometimes, for no apparent reason, It burned. A phantom pain that came and went without explanation. Doctors said it was psychosomatic. Her grandmother said it was the memory of the original wound, trying to be remembered. "You were born with that mark because your soul remembers," Rose would say, whenever Olivia complained about the pain. "Someday you'll understand. Someday you'll find who did this. And when you do, everything will make sense." Olivia thought her grandmother was getting senile, that it was just the stories of an old woman who believed too much in mysticism. But deep down, very deep down, a part of her wondered if there wasn't some truth to those words. The job opening came through a domestic employment agency. A mansion in the city's most exclusive neighborhood needed a general service employee. The salary was 3 times what Olivia earned in her other jobs combined. Room and board were included. A room for her and Lily in the back of the property. Private school for the girl, paid for by the employer. It seemed too good to be true. It seemed like a dream. Olivia didn't know that. In a way, it was exactly that. The selection process was conducted by the housekeeper, an efficient woman named Mrs. Hawthorne, who had worked for the Blackwood family for over 2 decades. Olivia went through all the steps: background checks, interviews, practical tests. At no point did she see the owner of the house. At no point did she imagine that she was about to enter the life of the man her soul had been searching for almost 4 centuries. Her first day of work was a Sunday in December. Lily stayed with Grandma Rose while Olivia familiarized herself with the property. The mansion was immense, 3 stories, 22 rooms, gardens that seemed to stretch to the horizon, and in every corner, works of art that were worth more than everything Olivia would earn in her entire life. She felt small, out of place, like an intruder in a world that wasn't hers. But she also felt something strange. A familiarity that didn't make sense, as if she had walked those halls before, as if she knew every curve of every corridor, even though it was her first time there. Mrs. Hawthorne noticed her confused expression as she led her through the house. "Is everything all right, dear?" Olivia hesitated. "It's strange. I feel like I know this place, like I've been here before." Mrs. Hawthorne chuckled softly. "A lot of people say that, Olivia. The Blackwood Manor has that effect on people. It's as if the walls themselves hold memories." But it wasn't that. Olivia knew it wasn't the architecture or the decor causing that sensation. It was something deeper, something that came from within her. As she walked down the grand hallway on the 2nd floor, her scar tingled slightly. She automatically reached her hand to her back, massaging the spot without thinking. "Are you all right, dear?" Mrs. Hawthorne inquired. "Oh, it's nothing. Just an old mark. Sometimes it aches." The housekeeper nodded understandingly and continued the tour. But Olivia remained pensive. Her scar rarely burned without reason. And now, in that house, she felt a constant pulsation, as if the mark was trying to tell her something. Ethan Blackwood arrived Monday evening. Olivia was finishing setting the dining room table when she heard the front door open. She didn't turn around immediately. She continued adjusting the silverware, positioning the napkins, doing her job, but she felt it. She felt a presence that made her heart race for no reason. She felt a warmth rise up her neck. She felt something that had no name, but that was impossible to ignore. When she finally turned around, her eyes met his, and the world stood still. Ethan stood in the doorway, his travel bag still in his hand, his overcoat still on his shoulders, his eyes, a deep green that seemed to hold oceans of secrets, were fixed on her. Not on her uniform, not on the work she was doing, on her. As if he recognized her, as if he had been searching for her his entire life, and had finally found her. Olivia felt her legs weaken. For an absurd second, she wanted to run to him, wanted to embrace him, wanted to say something she didn't understand, in a language she didn't know. But she did none of that. She stood frozen, a napkin in her hand, her heart thundering in her chest, staring at a stranger, who didn't feel like a stranger at all, and her scar. That mark she had carried since birth began to burn as it never had before, a sharp, pulsating pain. As if the wound was being reopened at that very moment, Olivia had to grip the table to keep from falling. What was happening to her? Why was her body reacting like this to the presence of this man? Ethan felt something too. His eyes widened slightly when he saw her. His hands, always steady in million-dollar negotiations, trembled as he held the bag. In his chest, a mark he had hidden since childhood began to burn, a mark that no doctor could explain, a mark in the shape of a piercing, as if a blade had passed through his heart at some point he couldn't remember. "You must be the new housekeeper." His voice was deep, controlled, but there was something underneath it, an almost imperceptible tremor. "Yes, sir. Olivia Hayes. I started yesterday." He nodded, a curt, businesslike movement. "Welcome to Blackwood Manor," and he walked out of the room without looking back. Olivia released the breath she didn't know she was holding. What had that been? Why was her heart still beating as if she had run a marathon? Why were her hands trembling? Why? For a fraction of a second. Had she felt like crying when she saw him? The following days were an exercise in calculated distance. Ethan was always traveling, always busy, always inaccessible. When he was home, he barely left the office on the 3rd floor. Olivia saw him pass sometimes, always hurried, always with the phone to his ear, always avoiding looking at her. But she felt it. She felt when he was nearby. She felt his eyes on her even when he pretended not to be looking. She felt an impossible connection that neither of them could name. One night, Olivia woke up startled in the small room in the back of the property. She had dreamed, a vivid, intense dream, full of colors and sounds that seemed too real to be just imagination. She was in an old square, with a stone fountain in the center. She wore a long dress from another era. And there was a man in a military uniform looking at her with green eyes, the same green eyes as Ethan Blackwood. He was holding out his hand. She was running towards him. And then, before they could touch, guards appeared, shouting, confusion, a sword gleaming in the torchlight. Olivia woke up with her scar burning and tears in her eyes. What was that dream? Why did it seem so real? And why, upon waking, did she feel a devastating longing for a man she barely knew? Lily, sleeping next to her in the small bed, stirred. "Mommy, are you okay?" "Yes, sweetie. Go back to sleep." But Olivia couldn't sleep anymore that night. She lay staring at the ceiling, her hand on her back where the scar pulsed, thinking of green eyes and swords and promises that seemed to have been made in another life. Mrs. Hawthorne noticed. "The master's never been like this," she said one morning while they were having coffee in the kitchen. "Normally he barely notices the staff. With you, he's different. He seems disturbed." Olivia didn't know what to say. How could she explain that she also felt disturbed, that she dreamed about him every night since she arrived, that the dreams were strange, full of horses and swords and period dresses, that she woke up with tears in her face without knowing why? The first touch happened 10 days after her arrival. Olivia was carrying a tray with antique porcelain cups when she tripped on the rug in the hallway. The cups flew. She fell. Her knee hit the wooden floor with an impact that made her cry out in pain. And before she could get up, strong hands held her by the shoulders. "Are you all right?" Ethan's voice was right above her. He had appeared out of nowhere. He had run to help her. The cups. Olivia tried to turn to see the damage, but the movement caused her blouse to tear where she had hit the corner of a small table. "Forget the cups." He lifted her carefully. "Are you hurt?" It was then that it happened. His hand, as he helped her to her feet, slid across her back and found the scar. The effect was instantaneous, a sharp, burning pain shot through Olivia's body like lightning. She screamed. Ethan pulled his hand away as if he had touched fire, and for a second, impossible to measure in human time. They both saw the same thing. A dark room, torches on the walls. A man in a military uniform holding a sword. A woman running. A movement. The sword descending. Blood spurting from a woman's back as a scream tore through the air. Elena. The name escaped Ethan's lips before he could stop it. A name he had never heard. A name he didn't know. A name that, somehow, belonged to the woman standing before him, trembling, with her hand on her back where the scar burned as if it had just been made. "What did you say?" Olivia's voice was barely a whisper. "What did you call me?" Ethan was pale, white as a ghost. His hands trembled visibly. I don't know. I didn't. You called me Elena. I know." They stared at each other. The hallway was silent. The broken teacups on the floor seemed irrelevant. Everything seemed irrelevant in the face of what had just happened. "Your scar," Ethan said. His voice was hoarse, controlled with effort. "I felt your scar, and I saw—" "What did you see?" He swallowed hard. "Blood. A sword. I was holding the sword." Olivia took a step back. "What are you saying?" "I don't know." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, visibly shaken. "I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know what happened. When I touched your scar, I saw things. Impossible things. I saw them too." The silence that followed was more eloquent than any words. Two strangers, in a hallway of a modern mansion, confronted with visions of a past that should not exist, a scar that burned, a name that echoed, and the growing certainty that something much larger than reason had united them. Ethan was the first to break the silence. "Go to your room. Rest. I'll ask Mrs. Hawthorne to check if you were hurt in the fall." "What about—" "No." The word came out sharply. "Later. I need to think." He turned and walked quickly towards the stairs, ascending to the third floor where his study was. Olivia stood in the hallway, her hands still trembling, her mind a whirlwind of unanswered questions. That night, she called her Grandma Rose. "Grandma, I need to tell you something." Olivia's voice trembled. "Something happened today, or something I can't explain." Rose listened in silence as her granddaughter described the episode, the touch, the vision, the name. When Olivia finished, there was a long moment of quiet on the line. "Elena?" Rose's voice was soft, almost reverent. "I knew this day would come." "You knew? What did you know?" "My darling, I saw you being born. I saw the mark on your back the moment you came into this world, and in that second I had a vision. I saw a man in an old uniform, a sword in his hand, and blood. I saw a woman falling, and I saw that man's eyes, filled with horror at what he had done. The same green eyes that you described just now." Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. "What does it mean?" "It means you found each other. After almost 4 centuries, Ace, you finally found each other. If you believe that some connections transcend time, that some wounds wait centuries to be healed, then you need to hear what happened in the following days. Because the vision in the hallway was just the beginning. The evidence was about to appear, and when it did, not even the most convinced skeptic could deny that Ethan and Olivia had met before. Long before. The next morning, Ethan canceled all his meetings. He told his assistant he needed time to deal with personal matters. He locked himself in his study and did something he had never done in his life. He researched reincarnation, about birthmarks that carry memories of past lives, about scars that appear in the same place where fatal injuries happened in previous existences. What he found disturbed him deeply. Documented cases, scientific studies, children who remembered past lives with verifiable details, adults who had marks on their bodies in the exact place where they had been injured or killed in other lives. Everything he had always dismissed as superstition now seemed like a possible explanation for his nightmares. For Olivia's scar. For the name he had shouted without ever having heard it. Elena. Who was Elena? And why did he feel like he had killed her? Meanwhile, Olivia tried to maintain a normal work routine. She cleaned the rooms, made the beds, polished the silver. But her mind was elsewhere, in a dark room with torches, in a cry of pain, in a name that echoed as if it were the most important thing in the universe. That afternoon, something strange happened while she was cleaning the great hall. A melody began to come out of her lips, a song she had never heard, in a language she didn't recognize, Old Spanish maybe, or something even more archaic. The words flowed naturally, as if she had known them forever, although her conscious mind had no idea what they meant. Mi amor perdido en el tiempo, tu espada me hirió, pero tu alma me salvo. Volveré a ti en otra vida, lo juro por el cielo y el mar. She stopped abruptly when she realized what she was doing. Where had that song come from? Those words? She had never studied Spanish, much less Old Spanish. And yet, the melody seemed as familiar as her own voice. The scar on her back pulsed, once, twice, like a beating heart. Olivia had to sit down. Her legs were trembling. Something was happening to her in that house, something that could not be explained by logic, something that perhaps could only be explained by her grandmother's stories. It was Mrs. Hawthorne who brought the first concrete clue. "Girl," she said during lunch, "do you know that Mr. Blackwood has a collection of antiques in the attic? He never lets anyone go up there. Says they're family heirlooms, but last night I saw him going up with a lantern, stayed there for hours, came down pale as a ghost." "What kind of antiques?" Mrs. Hawthorne shrugged. "Old weapons, I think. Paintings, things from centuries ago. The Blackwood family is very old, you know. They say they came from England generations ago." England. The word resonated in Olivia's mind. The vision she had had showed a military uniform, English maybe, and a sword. An English sword. That afternoon, something compelled her to go up to the third floor, not to the attic, which was locked, but to the hallway where Ethan's study was. The door was ajar. She knew she shouldn't spy. She knew it was an invasion of privacy, but her feet took her to the crack as if they had a will of their own. Ethan was sitting at his desk, his head in his hands, looking at something. A painting. Or rather, a photograph of a painting. Printed on A4 paper. Olivia leaned a little closer to see better, and what she saw made her legs fail. The painting showed a man in an old military uniform, English uniform, 17th century maybe. The man was in a formal pose, a sword at his waist, a distant look in his eyes, green eyes, deep, unmistakable. It was Ethan. Not like Ethan. It was him. The same face, the same expression, the same eyes. Olivia must have made some sound because Ethan raised his head sharply. Their eyes met, through the crack in the door. "Come in." It wasn't a request, it was an order. Olivia obeyed. The office was large, filled with books and papers, but all she could see was that image, that face that was Ethan's face, in clothing from almost 400 years ago. "Sit down." He indicated the chair in front of the desk. She sat. Her legs wouldn't have supported her standing for much longer anyway. "I found this yesterday," Ethan said. His voice was flat, carefully controlled. "My family has a genealogical archive. I've never been interested in it before, but after yesterday..." "Who is he?" Ethan took a deep breath. "Captain Diego de Monteverde, Spanish Royal Guard, born in 1620, died in 1651. Olivia did the math in her head. 1651. That's exactly 374 years ago. "And he looks like me. I know." Ethan pushed another printed sheet toward her. "But that's not the worst of it." Olivia looked at the new image. It was an enlargement of a detail from the original painting. In the lower left corner, almost imperceptible in the full painting, there was a female figure, a woman with her back turned, hunched over, with something dark running down her back. Blood, Ethan said. In the original painting, this figure is almost invisible. But when I zoomed in, he stopped, his voice finally trembling. It's you, Olivia. That woman is me hurting you. 374 years ago, the silence in the office was so dense, it felt like it had physical weight. How is this possible? Olivia's voice came out as a whisper. I don't know, but there's more. He stood up and walked to a cabinet in the corner. He took a key from his pocket and opened it. Inside, on a velvet stand, rested a sword, ancient, ornate, mortally beautiful. This sword has been in my family for generations. My father gave it to me when I turned 18, said it was a relic, that I should be proud of it. You know what I felt when I held it for the first time? Olivia couldn't take her eyes off the weapon. No, disgust, horror, guilt. I felt like I had done something terrible with it. I put it in the cabinet and never touched it again. Until yesterday. What happened yesterday? I held it again, and the vision I had was the same as the one I had when I touched your scar. Me wielding this sword into a female body. Your body. Ethan closed his eyes. I don't think I'm going crazy. I think I've done this before. I think I've hurt you before, and I think I've been having nightmares about it my entire life. Because my soul remembers what it did. Olivia stood up. She walked to the cabinet. Ethan didn't stop her. The sword was there, silent, ancient, full of stories that shouldn't be possible. Olivia reached out her hand. Her fingers touched the blade. The pain that shot across her back made her fall to her knees. What did you do to me? The question came out mixed with a scream. She clutched her back, where the scar burned as if it had just been opened. Ethan rushed to her, holding her before she fell completely. What was it? What happened? The sword. When I touched it. My scar. Olivia couldn't form complete sentences. The pain was too intense. I saw everything. I saw you holding the sword. I saw me trying to stop you from doing something. I saw you turning. I saw the blade cutting me. I saw blood. So much blood. Ethan held her in his arms, on the floor of the office, both trembling. Lily, he whispered again, the name she had never heard, but that she recognized as her own. Forgive me. Please. Forgive me. Gradually, the pain subsided. The scar stopped burning. Olivia was able to breathe normally, but neither of them moved. They stayed there, on the floor, him holding her, her trembling in his arms, united by a wound that was 375 years old. When they finally separated, there was something different between them. A barrier had fallen. A truth had been accepted. Not fully understood, but accepted. We need to find out what happened, Olivia said. The whole story. Why you hurt me, what happened after. Ethan nodded. I'll hire researchers, historians, there have to be records. If this painting exists, there has to be more. And until then, he hesitated. You stay, in the house, at the job. I'm not going to send you away. I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen. We'll figure it out. Together. Olivia felt tears in her eyes. Tears she didn't understand. Tears that seemed to have waited centuries to fall. Why am I crying? Ethan touched her face, with a gentleness that contrasted with all the coldness he showed to the world. Because your soul is finally remembering, just like mine. That night, Olivia called her Grandma Rose again. Grandma. It was true. Everything you said was true. We found evidence. A painting from 1650. A sword. Rose didn't seem surprised. The evidence is for the mind to accept what the soul already knows. My dear, what matters now is what you're going to do with it. What do you mean? You met for a reason. He hurt you in one life and carries the guilt in all the others. You died with that wound, and the mark stayed on your soul. Now, 375 years later, you have a chance to close this cycle, to heal what was left open. The question is, are you ready for it? Olivia thought about her grandmother's words as she tried to sleep. heal what was left open, close the cycle. But how do you heal a wound that's 375 years old? How do you forgive something you don't even remember completely? And more importantly, was she ready to forgive? Or would there be more revelations before forgiveness was even possible? In the following days, Ethan hired a team of researchers specializing in 17th century Spanish history. He gave them only partial information, said he was interested in finding out more about his ancestor, Captain Diego de Monteverde. He didn't mention reincarnation. He didn't mention visions. He didn't mention Olivia while they waited for the research results. The routine at the mansion continued, but everything was different. Ethan no longer avoided Olivia. On the contrary, he seemed to seek her presence. They had coffee together in the mornings. They talked about their lives, about their fears, about the dreams they both had. They discovered impressive similarities. Neither had ever been able to maintain long relationships. Both felt they were waiting for someone specific. Both had an inexplicable melancholy that no material success could cure, and both continued to have visions when they were close. Fragments of the past appeared, a female laugh, a square with a fountain, hands intertwined in secret, but also darker scenes, prison bars, distant screams, the roll of drums. Gradually, a story began to form, a story of forbidden love in a violent era, a story of impossible choices and eternal consequences. 10 days later, the researchers sent their initial report. Ethan called Olivia to his office so they could read it together. What they found about changed everything. Captain Diego de Monteverde, Captain Diego Blackwood, served in the Spanish Royal Guard. No, the Royal Guard of Spain from 1640 to 1650. He was decorated for bravery and considered one of the finest swordsmen of his generation. In 1650, he was assigned to assist with the Inquisition's operations in a rural town in Spain. His mission was to apprehend heretics and transport them for trial. Among those arrested was a merchant named Antonio Reyes. No, Anthony Hayes. Olivia felt her blood run cold. Hayes. My last name. Ethan continued reading, his voice trembling. Anthony Hayes was accused of heresy and taken to trial. He had a single daughter, named Elena Reyes. No, Lily Hayes, who tried to prevent her father's arrest. Lily, the name he'd been shouting. Historical records show that during the arrest, Lily Hayes was accidentally injured by one of the guards. She survived the initial injury. But what? Ethan couldn't continue. He passed the document to Olivia. She read it, her hands shaking. After the incident, Captain Diego Blackwood deserted the Royal Guard, abandoned his post, his family, and his honor to care for Lily Hayes and help her escape. They lived in hiding for 3 months before being found. Diego was executed for treason on March 15, 1651. Lily died of fever a few days later, still recovering from the back injury. Witnesses reported that she was holding Diego's sword at the moment of her death. The silence in the office was absolute. I hurt you, Ethan said finally, his voice a torn whisper. But then I abandoned everything for you. I died for you. Olivia couldn't speak. Tears streamed silently down her face. You died holding my sword, he continued. Even after everything I did, you died holding a part of me. Because I loved you. The words escaped Olivia before she could even think them. I loved you, Diego, even when you hurt me. I knew it wasn't your intention. Ethan raised his eyes. She had called him Diego, a name she had never heard outside the visions, a name her soul knew. You called me. I know. They looked at each other across the table, separated by papers with information from 375 years ago, united by something that went far beyond any historical document. What do we do now? Olivia asked. Ethan stood up. He walked around the table, stopped in front of her. I spent 4 centuries searching for you. to ask for forgiveness. My nightmares are about hurting you. My entire life has been about carrying a guilt I didn't understand. Now I understand. He knelt before her. Forgive me, Lily. Forgive me, Olivia. For hurting you. For making you carry this mark. For every life in which I searched for you and couldn't find you. Forgive me. Olivia looked at the man kneeling before her. The CEO of a hotel empire. The millionaire who controlled fortunes. On his knees, begging forgiveness for something that had happened before either of them was born. She placed her hands on his face, lifted his chin, looked into the green eyes that had looked at her 375 years ago. I forgive you, Diego. I forgive you, Ethan. You hurt me, but you also died for me. You hurt me, but you also loved me. How can I not forgive someone who gave his life to protect me? He made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. He closed his eyes as tears streamed down. Olivia felt something strange happen. The scar on her back, which had burned so many times in the last few days, began to tingle, not with pain, but with something different, something like warmth, something like relief. My scar, she said. It's different. Ethan opened his eyes. Before he could ask what she meant, he felt something in his own body, on his chest, on the left side. A mark he had had since birth began to burn. A mark he had always hidden, ashamed of its strange appearance. A mark that, he realized now, was in the exact shape of a sword piercing. What? He raised his hand to his chest. You have a mark, too. Olivia was staring at the place where his hand touched the fabric of his shirt. Let me see. With trembling fingers, Ethan unbuttoned his shirt. There, over his heart, was a scar that wasn't quite a scar, a birthmark that wasn't quite a birthmark, an impression on his skin that had the unmistakable shape of a blade piercing flesh. You died like this, Olivia whispered. Pierced by a sword, protecting someone. Protecting you. She reached out her hand, touched the mark on his chest. He closed his eyes at the intensity of the sensation. And then, a vision took them both. Unlike the others, this one was complete, clear, absolute. They saw everything. Diego Blackwood entering Anthony Hayes's house with his soldiers. Lily, a young woman with dark hair and fiery eyes, throwing herself in front of her father. Diego shouting for her to get out of the way. The automatic reflex of his sword as she lunged forward. The blade cutting into her back as he tried. Too late to deflect the blow, the blood, the scream, the horror in his eyes as he realized what he had done. The next 3 months in rapid flashbacks. Diego caring for Lily hidden in a cabin in the woods. The love growing between them, despite everything. The nights of conversations, the days of healing, the touches that started timid and became essential, the promise made on a stormy night. I will find you in every life, Lily. In every life I will ask for forgiveness. In every life I will protect you until this wound is finally healed. And I will wait for you, Diego. In every life, I will recognize you. In every life, I will forgive you, until we can finally be together. The 3 months hidden in the cabin, the love growing in every glance, in every careful touch as he changed the dressings on her back, the nights when she woke up crying in pain, and he stayed awake beside her, holding her hand, singing songs from his childhood to calm her. The days when the fever seemed like it was going to take her away, and he prayed to every saint he knew, promising anything in exchange for her recovery. You should leave, she said one night, her voice weak from the illness. You're a fugitive because of me. They'll kill you if they find you. Then let them kill me. Diego held her face with trembling hands. I won't leave you. Never. No matter what happens. You hurt me. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life asking for forgiveness for that. But as long as there's life in me, as long as my heart beats, I'll protect you. And when I die, I'll find you in the next life, and the next, and the next, until we can finally be together, without fear. Lily touched his face, even weak, even wounded. Even knowing she would probably die in that cabin, she felt a peace she had never felt before. I forgive you, Dylan. I forgave you the moment you held me in your arms and wept for what you had done. I forgive you. Tears streamed down the captain's face. The man who had never cried in battle, who had faced armies without fear, cried like a child in the arms of the woman he had wounded and loved. The final scene. Soldiers surrounding the cabin, Dylan fighting against 10 men to give Elena time to escape. The sword that pierced his chest. The last look he gave her before falling. And Elena, too weak to flee, crawling to him, picking up the sword that had fallen from his hands, holding it against her chest, as the fever consumed the little life she had left. I'll come back to you, Dylan. In another life, I'll come back to you. She died 3 days later, still holding his sword, still whispering his name and still hoping for the reunion that would only happen 375 years later. The vision ended. Ethan and Olivia were on the floor of the study, both crying away, both trembling, both finally understanding the totality of what connected them. 375 years, Ethan said. It took us 375 years to find each other. But we found each other. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if he was afraid she would disappear. I won't lose you again. Never again. Celeste and Olivia snuggled against him, feeling for the first time in her life that she was exactly where she should be. You won't. Because this time, Dylan, no one is chasing us. No one is hunting us. We are just two people who have finally found each other. They stayed like that for a long time. Two bodies embraced on the floor of a modern study. Two souls that had traveled almost 4 centuries to reach that moment. When they finally separated, something had changed. The scars on both of them had stopped tingling. The tension they had carried their whole lives had dissolved. The guilt in Ethan's eyes had given way to peace. The melancholy in Olivia's eyes had given way to hope. What do we do now, she asked, repeating the question she had asked before. But this time, the answer was different. Now, said Ethan, we live, you, me, and Lily. We live the life we couldn't have in 1650. We live as we should have lived, if the world had been different. And the sword? And the past stays in the past. The sword. He thought for a moment. The sword goes to a museum where it belongs, not in a closet, not as a relic of guilt, but as a historical artifact. Proof that Dylan and Eleanor existed. Olivia smiled. The first time she had smiled truly, in more time than she could remember. And us? What are we? We are Ethan and Olivia, with parts of Dylan and Elena inside us, but mostly, we are two people who have finally found each other and who won't let anything separate them again. 2 weeks later, Grandma Rose came to visit her granddaughter. She entered the mansion supported by her cane, her eyes already searching for something specific. When she saw Ethan and Olivia together in the living room, holding hands, the peace evident on their faces, she smiled. So, it's him, she said, walking to Ethan. The man I saw in my vision 29 years ago. The man who hurt and saved. The man my granddaughter was waiting for. Ethan knelt before the elderly woman. A gesture of respect that surprised even Olivia. I am he, and I am here to take care of your granddaughter for the rest of our lives. Rose placed her hand on his head, a silent blessing. The scars have already diminished, haven't they? How do you know? I know, I can see. The guilt you carried is no longer so heavy, and the pain she carried is no longer so sharp. The cycle is closing. She asked to see the sword. Ethan led her to the study. Rose held the ancient weapon with steady hands, without fear, without pain. This sword carried guilt for almost 400 years, she said, but now it's just metal. Forgiveness has freed it, just as it has freed you. That night, they had a special dinner. Ethan, Olivia, Lily, Rose, and even Mrs. Hawthorne, who had been part of the family for decades, for the first time. The mansion that Ethan had always seen as cold and empty was filled with warmth and laughter. Lily, without fully understanding what was happening, knew only that her mother was happy, and that the tall man with green eyes looked at her mother in a way that made her feel that everything would be all right. During dinner, Rose told stories of her youth, of how she had discovered her gift of seeing beyond the veil of time. She told about visions she had had about people she barely knew, about destinies she had foreseen, about souls she had seen reunite after centuries of separation. "Your story is not unique," she said, looking at Ethan and Olivia. "Many souls are lost and found over time, but few have the courage to accept the truth. Few manage to forgive. You are special because you chose to heal, instead of repeating the pain." Lily listened to everything with wide eyes, without fully understanding, but fascinated by her great-grandmother's stories. "Grandma Rose, will I also find someone from another life?" Rose smiled and stroked the girl's hair. "Maybe, my love, maybe. But don't worry about that now. Live this life first. Love the people who are here. The rest comes when it has to come. Will you be my dad?" Lily asked suddenly, turning to Ethan with the direct innocence of children. Ethan looked at Olivia. She nodded, tears in her eyes. "If you want," he replied. "If you and your mother want me." "I want," said Lily. "You have kind eyes, and Mommy smiles differently when you're around." Ethan felt his heart clench. That little girl, who he barely knew, had seen something that he himself was still learning to accept, that when he was near Olivia, everything was different, better, more right. "I will take care of you," he promised, looking from Lily to Olivia. "Of both of you, forever." And it was true. The eyes that had once carried the weight of centuries of guilt now shone with something new: hope, love, belonging. The following months were of discovery and adaptation. Ethan, who had never lived with anyone other than employees, learned to share his space, his life, his heart. Olivia, who had spent years fighting alone, learned to accept help, to trust, to believe that she deserved to be happy. Lily blossomed in her new life. The private school was better than anything Olivia could have provided alone. The little girl made friends, developed talents, and most importantly, gained something she'd never had before: a present and loving father figure. Ethan was surprised by how much he loved being a dad. He took Lily to school every morning, helped with homework every night. He attended ballet recitals with the same attention he dedicated to board meetings. And when the little girl ran into his arms, shouting, "Daddy," he felt he'd finally found the purpose that had been missing in his life. The nightmares, those that had tormented him for more than 2 decades, simply stopped. For the first time since he was 16, Ethan slept in peace. No swords and no blood, no screams, no guilt. Olivia noticed the change. "You sleep differently now," she said one morning, caressing his face. "Before, you moved a lot, mumbled things. Now, you sleep like an angel." "Because the ghosts have finally rested," he replied. "Because you've forgiven me. Because I'm exactly where I should be." A year later, there was a wedding. The ceremony was small, just the closest people. Grandma Rose, Mrs. Hawthorne, a few trusted friends. There was no need for a big party. What mattered was the significance of that moment, the culmination of a journey that had begun 375 years before. Olivia wore a simply white dress. That fell elegantly over her body. Ethan wore a dark suit, impeccable as always, but with a different detail. In his breast pocket, an old handkerchief that had belonged to Captain Diego de Blackwood, a family heirloom that he had never used, but that now seemed perfectly appropriate. When he saw her walking down the makeshift aisle in the mansion's garden, he felt something that transcended the normal emotion of a groom. He felt 375 years of waiting coming to an end. He felt Diego's soul finally at peace. He felt that. After so many lifetimes of searching and suffering, he was finally where he should be. Olivia felt it too. When she looked into his eyes as she reached the altar, she saw more than the man she loved. She saw centuries of history. She saw a sword and blood and pain. But she also saw healing and forgiveness and infinite love. "You came," she whispered, so low that only he could hear. "You promised you'd come in every life. And you came." "I will always come," he replied, "in every life, Gus, until I find you." When Ethan placed the ring on Olivia's finger, both felt a tingling in the scars that had once marked their bodies, the marks, which had already diminished considerably since the day of forgiveness, finally disappeared completely, not gradually, as had happened in the months before, instantly, as if they had never existed. Grandma Rose, sitting in the front row, saw it happen. Her eyes, which could see beyond the veil of time, watched the two marks dissolve into the air. She saw the ancient energy, heavy, laden with guilt and pain, finally free itself. She smiled. Tears streamed down her wrinkled face. "The cycle is closed," she whispered to herself. After 375 years, the cycle is finally closed. On their wedding night, Ethan and Olivia were alone for the first time as husband and wife. He touched her back where the scar used to be. The skin was smooth, perfect, as if there had never been a mark at all. "It's gone," he said, marveling. Olivia placed her hand on his chest, the same place where the sword mark used to be, also smooth, also perfect. "Because we've healed," she said. "We've finally healed." Ethan kissed her, a kiss that had 375 years of waiting, a kiss that sealed not only a marriage, but the closing of a cycle that had begun with blood and ended with love. "I found you, Eleanor," he whispered against her lips. "I waited for you, Diego," she replied, and they loved each other as two souls who were finally at peace. 5 years later, the Blackwood family had grown. Lily, now 9 years old, had a little brother named Diego, a name chosen in honor of the past, but given with hope for the future. Diego de Blackwood's sword was in a Spanish history museum, with a plaque that told the story of the captain who abandoned everything for love. Visitors from all over the world came to see it, unaware that the true story was even more extraordinary than the plaque told. Grandma Rose passed away 2 years after the wedding, on a quiet spring night. She passed away sleeping, with a smile on her face, knowing that her mission in this world was complete. She had seen her granddaughter happy. She had witnessed the closing of a 375-year cycle. She had helped 2 lost souls find each other and heal. Before departing, the last time Olivia visited her in the hospital, Rose held her granddaughter's hand with a strength surprising for someone so weak. "I saw your next life," whispered the old woman, her eyes shining with that light that Olivia knew so well. "You and he will meet again, but this time it will be different. There will be no pain. There will be no guilt. There will be no wounds to heal. You will simply look at each other and know and you will love each other from the first second. That's what happens when two souls finally finish their work. They earn the right to just love. Grandma. Olivia had tears in her eyes. Don't cry, my child. I will also return, and maybe, in another life, I will be your daughter, or your friend, or just someone who crosses your path and smiles. We never lose the people we truly love. They just change shape. Rose closed her eyes that night and did not wake up again. But the smile on her face was that of someone who had seen beyond the veil and knew that death was just a door, not an end. Olivia kept those words in her heart, and whenever she looked at Lily or at little Diego, she wondered if Rose hadn't already returned, if those bright eyes of the children didn't hold some of the wisdom of the old seer. Ethan changed completely after the wedding. The cold and distant CEO became a loving husband and a dedicated father. His businesses continued to thrive, but he learned to balance work and family in a way he had never been able to before. The guilt he had carried his whole life had finally found resolution, and Olivia finally understood why she had never been able to connect with anyone before Ethan, why she had always felt that she was waiting for someone specific, why the scar on her back had always seemed more than just a birthmark. She had waited 375 years. She had crossed death and been reborn carrying the mark of that encounter. And finally, she had found the person her soul was looking for. On a December evening, exactly 6 years after Ethan had first touched Olivia's scar, they sat on the porch of the mansion and gazing at the stars. "Do you think we'll find each other again?" Olivia asked softly. "In another life?" Ethan smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. "I think so, but not with pain, not with guilt. I think we'll meet and simply recognize each other." He paused, then continued, "And love each other, without needing to heal anything, just love." Olivia snuggled closer to him, drawing warmth from his presence. "I would like that," she whispered. "Me too," Ethan responded, holding her tighter. They sat in silence, lost in their thoughts, gazing at the starlit sky, two souls finally at peace, after nearly 4 centuries of searching, the weight of their past lives slowly fading away. The story of Diego and Elena had ended in tragedy back in 1651, a devastating tale of lost love. But the story of Ethan and Olivia was just beginning, and unlike the first, this one would have a happy ending, a future free from pain and sorrow. Because some connections transcend time, some wounds wait centuries to be healed, and some soulmates journey through entire lifetimes until they finally find each other. And when they find each other, when they finally recognize and forgive each other, when the scars they carried finally disappear, what remains is something very simple and very profound. Love. Pure, unconditional love. Just you and love. Have you ever felt like you knew someone you just met? Have you ever had the sensation that you needed to apologize to a stranger without knowing why? Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and seen centuries of history? Have you ever felt that familiar connection to someone you've just met? If so, perhaps you also have a story of past lives awaiting to be discovered, a story of heartbreak, love, and ultimately reconciliation. And maybe, just like Ethan and Olivia, you're closer than you imagine to finding the person your soul has been searching for, your soulmate. Some connections are for a lifetime. Others are for eternity. The question is, which one is yours? What is your fate?